Okay, at 7 o'clock, we'll call this meeting to order. With this being the first meeting of the year, I'm going to walk us through the first couple orders of business before we get to the election of officers. Once you elect your president, then I will turn the mic over to him or her. First tonight, I just wanted to note for the record that Mayor John Stair, who's with us tonight, had previously been on the park board as park board president, and he resigned from his role on the park board as of January 1st, whenever he took office as mayor. I just wanted to read the resignation into the record, just to make note that there was a vacancy in his seat that was filled, and we will be swearing in those new members tonight, one of whom is filling that vacancy. Dear Jason, this was addressed to Jason Plunkett, Town Council President. I'm writing to inform you that I will resign my appointment to the Zionsville Board of Parks and Recreation effective January 1st, 2024. As current board president, he planned on remaining in place through the end of the year to help close out business for both the board and the Parks Department in preparation for the new year, and he did that. Thank you for your confidence in me and for allowing me to be part of this important and meaningful work in our town. John Stair. So our next order of business is going to be to swear in the new members. If the three new members will please rise, and I will administer your oath. You can repeat after me. You can raise your hand, please. I, and then state your name.
I
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Indiana,
and the state of Indiana.
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
of Zionsville Park Board member according to law and to the best of my skill and ability. Of Zionsville Park Board member
of Zionsville Park Board member
according to law
according to law
and to the best of my skill and ability.
and to the best of my skill and ability.
Thank you.
That was the text.
I think we're going to switch around a couple of things here, just in the order that we're doing them. And the next order of business that we're going to address is the election of the 2024 officers. First, we will take nominations for the role of president, if anybody has a nomination that they would like to put forward.
I nominate John Salowitz for president.
We have one nomination for John as president. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, John, congratulations.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna pass it over to you now.
All right, I am John Slevich, and so the next order of business is nominating the vice president of the Zionsville Park Board. Do I have a nomination for vice president?
I'll nominate Ryan Cambridge.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ryan carries. And second order of business is nomination of secretary. Do we have a nomination for secretary for the Zionsville Park Board? I can assume I can nominate as well too.
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Michael Kaufman. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second.
Third. I think Kimberly got that one. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It carries. So we have our officers for the 2024 Parks Board. One thing we probably need to do is take a roll call so that we know everyone is here. So Ryan Cambridge.
Present.
Michael Kaufman.
Present.
Chris Barksdale.
Here.
Kimberly Lane.
Here.
Matt Milborn.
Here.
Chad Dilley.
Here.
All 7 members are here. So next order of business is the approval of December 13th, 2023 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Any questions, items to review? Nothing. Do I have a motion to pass minutes from December 13th, 2023.
So moved.
Ryan makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Kimberly seconds.
Kimberly seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions?
I think technically, because we're.
Yeah.
New members should probably abstain.
Abstain.
Saying.
So that carried 4-3. Next order of business is public presentations or comments. So we have some people out here visiting and also online. Do we have anyone who needs to make a comment? No one online either? Okay, all right, move on to Parks Foundation update. My guess is we probably don't have an update since our former liaison is no longer on the board, so would like to find out if someone's interested in being our liaison for the Parks Board, I mean, for the Parks Foundation.
I'd be interested in taking on that role.
Okay. We'll be very happy to have you there. So does that need to be voted upon or?
No, I think that.
Okay, so fantastic.
Okay.
Appreciate you willing to step up and be part of that role. So,
Did
yes.
you want to let the new members maybe?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So since we do have 3 new members, I'd like to go ahead and go down the line here and let them introduce themselves and maybe just a little bit about themselves and what and how they can help the Parks Board. So,
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so Chad Dilley, been a Zionsville resident for about 10 years now. I'm really excited to have this opportunity. I've got 4 young girls. We use the parks quite frequently and can't think of a better way to serve the community. So thank you for the opportunity.
Michael Kaufman, I've been living in Zionsville for the last 18 months. Excited to serve. I think I bring a unique perspective as a father of a son with Down syndrome, and excited and love parks because it's truly a place that is completely inclusive and where he can be free, enjoy his time and his peers and his community. So excited to support that and bring that perspective among other things.
Matt Milburn, I've been a Zionsville resident for 5.5 years. So I moved here right before the birth of my second child. So I've got 3, a 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And like Chad, use the parks a lot, not just the playgrounds, but also hiking and enjoying the nature. So I'm excited to be here and help the community.
welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you taking your time and being a part of this wonderful organization. So next on the minutes is staff reports. Yes.
The mayors.
Oh, the mayor. I'm sorry. I apologize. Our mayor has a message that she would like to speak to everyone. I apologize.
Well, this is a different perspective for sure. Thank you so much for putting me on the agenda. I asked to be put on the agenda for several reasons, not the least of which is that I realized that I had attended 49 park board meetings in a row. I wanted to keep my streak going to 50. So, and I don't really have anything specific to propose tonight, but I do want to offer you support. As you know, the last few years have been remarkable for the Parks Department in Zionsville. We were able to extend the rail trail north and south, trail widening and improvement. The Overly Warming Park opened. The dog park opened. We got new pickleball courts, a trailhead on Zionsville Road, and then arguably the biggest accomplishment of all, which is capturing the Carpenter Nature Preserve. And as the most recent Parks Board president, I would love to take credit for all of it, but the truth is that it was a result of a lot of work by a lot of people over a long period of time. Too many people to even name, because if I started naming people, I'm sure to forget somebody, so I don't want to do that. So much good has happened in our park system the last few years that I think that the Parks Department and the parks have really become part of the Zionsville brand. I think right behind education and public safety. And as a board, I think you are truly blessed. You have great leadership and great department heads in Jared as the leader of the department, and Chris as the maintenance director, Mindy, who does the recreational services, and Mike, who handles the golf course. And they've got great support in Amy and in Tricia. You are really set up for success. Both programming and maintenance, I think we do well. And I would encourage you to spend time with our programming people, the people that work for Mindy, and also the people that work for Chris, who do such a great job keeping our parks in such great shape. And for those of you who are new to all this, I just want to offer a little bit of perspective that I have found in municipal government. There are three things that are true. It always takes longer than you think it should. It's always more complicated than you think it should be. And it always costs more than you think when you start out. But through all of that, it is really worth it. I think that you are positioned to accomplish some great things. And I just want you to know that I recognize the value in our park system, and I understand how much our town appreciates our park system. And I want you to know that you have friends in the building here, particularly up on the second floor, kind of across the hall from where the Parks Department is. I will always support you as best I can. And I encourage you to keep thinking big, because when you do that, big things happen in our Parks Department. So again, thank you for letting me speak. And if anybody has any questions or anything that they want to say to me, I'll stand here and take it all before I go.
Well, we really appreciate everything you've done for the Parks Board and for the town of Zionsville. And we are Zionsville's in great hands, and we applaud you for everything you've done and everything you'll be doing going forward. So
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you, John. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you again. Thanks all of you. And I look forward to lots of good, positive interaction over the next several years. Thanks.
Thank you.
thank you, John. All right, now we go to staff reports. Jared, the superintendent.
Thank you very much, John. Good evening, Park Board. I'm happy to answer any questions from my superintendent report, but I was just going to highlight three quick items so we can keep moving down this busy agenda. The Parks Department, with authorization of the Park Board, has issued the certificate of completion for the trailhead facility on Zionsville Road. So that project is officially completed. So happy to have that addition to our park system. You'll notice as you walk the rail trail, especially in phase 2, there's still straw and seed trying to sprout through that. So there are still some punch list items for the widening that'll wrap up in the spring. And that's largely due to the time of year and it just the appropriateness of completing that project. So on great shape for completely wrapping up our rail trail project that's been going on for the past 3 decades. It's been an exciting time. North Zionsville up at Carpenter Nature Preserve. I've been meeting with Tricia and her team for the site design, and we hope to have that initial 60% drawing here in the next couple of months, incorporating those elements from phase 1. And finally, I've been having some very constructive conversations and meetings with the Zionsville Parks Foundation, discussing continued naming rights and donation opportunities for not only the Carpenter Nature Preserve, but our park system as a whole. So very constructive December for our park system. And that's all from the superintendent report.
Thank you, Jared. Don't have any questions or? All right, next will be the Director of Maintenance.
I'll fill in for Chris here. He's a little under the weather. I wanted to highlight a couple items from his report, as well as what his team has accomplished over the past month. The dogway stations have been reinstalled along the rail trail. So those items were pulled as construction happened, and those trash cans and amenities are back on site for our users to access. Seeding and straw was conducted at Mulberry Fields, where we had a little field damage, as well as the dog park. So traditionally, dog parks are notorious for tearing up their turf. And it's always a challenge with park systems of what type of aggregate, what type of seeding, what type of substrate you're going to use for those systems. So to date, we're still using turf for that. So we were just trying to bolster that up as we prepare for the muddy winter and spring. There was an incident at Mulberry Fields where a vehicle collided with the first shelter as you enter the park. So our park maintenance team quickly responded to that and created a barricade around that structure, removing the public from access to it. We are working with insurances to get that replaced just as quickly as we can. So not letting that sit idle. And finally, there was a balance beam at the Overly Warman playground that maintenance staff took off and painted into a brighter color. We had a report of someone tripping over that beam as they ran under the play structure. So hoping to add some visibility to that. The brown just blended a little bit too much with the mulch. And that is all from the maintenance report.
Thank you very much. And next is Director of Recreation Services, Mindy.
All right. So December for us was, of course, Winterfest. Even though we didn't have the ice rink, we went full speed ahead with all of our different programming. So just a few highlights for the month of December. We had 1,000 walk-ins for the Zionsville Nature Center. So we ended on a very high note for the year 2023. We also got to be a part of the library's VIP Christmas with I think it's the Hawk Foundation was part of them. So that was a new one for us, but it was fun to be able to get the families to get to come into the nature center after hours and get to interact with our staff. Just a few highlights on some of those Winterfest programs. Zionsville continues to show that they love luminary walks. Not sure why they're so popular that they are, but each of our luminary walks were anywhere from 70 to almost 190 participants. So we will continue those on. We do have a Valentine luminary walk coming up, but they'll continue as a part of Winterfest going forward. We also had extremely great attendance. We did our first ever Christmas in the park. So had about 400 kids and their parents come on down through and get to see reindeer and Santa Claus. We moved for the second year of the Makers Market, we moved it down onto the Brick Street and working in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce. And we saw about 1,800 people come in. So it was a very busy Saturday morning for that one. And then, of course, we ended, 2023 with our, as always, New Year's Eve. It was a little rainy, a little sleety, but we still had about 75 people show up at Lincoln Park to ring in the new year. So, but that's all I have for December. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Mindy. We really appreciate it. All right, next on the list is golf course.
Good evening. So the golf course in December is pretty quiet, but we're selling season passes for 2024. To date, we've sold 20 season passes for 2024 already. So I'll get into when we do the year in review what we've done for 2023, but we had an exceptional 2023. Our machine, our equipment is, getting repaired right now. It's with Kenny, out with Mike Coker. Actually tomorrow, the ash tree next to the putting green is coming down. It's been dropping branches and stuff like that. So Trees R Us are taking that down tomorrow. And now Culligan has conducted the water test. It's actually deems our water safe again to drink. So yeah, so that's what kind of December was all about. But yeah, like I said, when we do the year in review, I'll kind of go over the 2023.
So the season, is that normal? Season pass that early?
Yeah, we started in kind of for the Christmas rush.
Yeah.
But through February 15th, we kind of give a discount. And then, but yeah, so to have that many,
yeah,
it's kind of par for the course right now, but perfect, so to speak. Yeah. But yeah. I've got people, kind of calling, emailing me right now. So yeah, and I've got my senior league member that's sent out emails to his people. So all those are student season passes. So the senior passes really haven't even hit yet. So.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Parks Attorney. Amy, do you have anything or do you? Okay.
Oh, I've just been doing contract review and drafting some easement documents and working on quite a few things with Jared, but many of those are going to be addressed in new business and other board related items. So other than that.
Okay, thank you so much. So on to new business. First would be the Zionsville Park and Recreation Department 2023 year in review.
Thank you very much. Just loading this up real quick. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite times of year because we get to look back at all the things we accomplished in the previous year. So it's great to kind of reflect, and invited a couple of special guests tonight to help us share the good news. So looking back at 2023, our vision for the department was to work on our connections. So connecting with our community in new ways, finding new connections that we can link people together, and building stronger relationships in our community. And I would say we accomplished that pretty well. So first off, one of the large physical improvements to our park system was the Mulberry Field pickleball courts. So like many park systems, we were playing catch up on this sport that seemed to explode onto the scene overnight. So a fantastic sport, all ages can play, all groups, and they do. As we've had these courts in operation, we've noticed groups forming, clubs, leagues, friends, groups that are not associated with each other asking if they could tag into games. So it's been a really great asset to our community, and watching that community grow within our park system. One of the most tangible connections would be the completion of the Big Four Rail Trail. So over a 30-year journey for our park system, we have now completed the northern expansion, the southern expansion, the trailhead at the Zionsville Road southern terminus, as well as widen the path in between. So we look forward to having a completed rail trail. We're not going to tear it up for a while, and beginning to celebrate that. It is the spine of our trail system and our pathway system, and we are looking at new ways to program that in the coming year. These physical assets to our park system also provided the opportunity for connections on a social level. So as I mentioned, pickleball programming began in our park system recently and has been filling up those slots every time we offer them. So the courts not only have allowed our park system to grow with its programming, but also welcomed not only residents, but visitors from afar to play the sport. Our rail trail, while connecting neighborhoods, communities, and friends on it as a recreational destination, it also helped us connect with our neighbors. So finding new ways to collaborate with Whitestown now that we have a regional trail connecting our two communities. And we're really excited about those opportunities to partner and collaborate with them and have a little civil rivalry growing in the next couple of years. Operationally, as a department, we challenged ourselves to look at our connections and experiment and look at them through the filter of the 7 dimensions of well-being. So these 7 needs are some of the fundamental pillars that help explain and help define well-being in our community. So we challenge staff to look at each of these different filters as they invite programming or make improvements to our park system, and see how that they can look through a different lens and potentially expand their original intentions. So socially, just the opportunity to have these programmings and connect our community. Some of the new assets that are a little bit lower on the capital cost, which is a good thing. The hammock park at Heritage Trail Park was designed in hopes that our teenagers would start placing their hammocks there instead of some of our shelters and trees, but they're still welcome to do that as well. As I mentioned, the pickleball court has been a huge success for connecting people in our community. And this year, through more communication, we were able to have our gardening club actually form some formal events on their own. So as a Parks Department, we don't have to do everything, and we are very happy to find partners to help us expand wellness and recreation in our community. So having residents pick up that and run with it and develop their own organized events within our programs is fantastic. And of course, connecting families and multi-generational members together through our programming. Looking at culturally, we want to create more community events and celebrations that celebrate not only what makes Zionsville unique and specific, but also ties back to our heritage and our talents. So continuing to expand not only our displays of public art, both permanently with new murals and installations, but also temporarily, and allowing our community to contribute, like our butterfly trail, which pops up several large pieces of butterfly wings around our park system, each hand painted by a resident in our community. Adding new events and celebrations, as well as old classics. Pictured in this image is the Lincoln Park Concert Series that again has been completed by our community partner, the Cultural District, for many years. And having partners that help our youth celebrate their talents and explore new things, with Bach to Rock attending several of our parties, as well as our new partnership with Maple Lawn Farmstead, celebrating a new spooky tradition in our community. And I want to highlight and celebrate just how well our programming department did with identifying programming that reaches to the emotional needs of our community. So highlighting milestones with our students with Party in the Park. Hundreds of students flood to Mulberry Fields on the last day of school to celebrate the start of summer. Continuing to find opportunities for people to express themselves at our events and our holiday traditions, and also understanding the needs of people as our daylight hours become shorter and isolation becomes a little bit more. I want to applaud the luminary walks for getting not only some people out into our parks in the darkness, but so many, with nearly 200 people attending those walks. And also focusing on the economic impact that our Parks Department can have in our community. Utilizing the economic lens, we look at mentoring the emerging workforce. And I just wanted to celebrate our junior naturalists and our camp counselors that are rising through the ranks, exploring their passions with animal and conservation, and seeing if that might in turn help steer their career opportunities, their degrees that they pursue, and just add experiences to their lives. Also continue to expand our department with additional hirings and diversifying our workforce, as well as partnering with the Zionsville Parks Foundation. So again, anytime we can find a partner to help us expand the impact we're trying to have in Zionsville, we're more than happy to explore that. And the Zionsville Parks Foundation has been a great partner since day one, offering scholarships in years past, sponsoring programs this year and last, and we look forward to how we can work together in the future years. And all of that was pretty high level, but I'm going to defer to our expert, our Director of Recreation Services, Mindy, to talk a little bit more about the impact we've been having.
So 2023. So of course, this is kind of the mission that we go off of in recreation as far as our programming goes, to really look at unique, accessible, and safe for youth development, as well as for just the general public to learn, play, and engage. And that's kind of the role that we try to play every year that we are out here doing all of our programs and events. So just some high level of looking at what went on in 2023 in recreation. The big one is that we saw over 33,000 individuals, and that was through either our nature center visitors, those that attended programs, those that we reached with the Creek Stomper outreach, or actually came to one of our special events. So that's something to think about, considering the Zionsville population is not 33,000 people. So it is, you know, every year, look at me, is an increase, and we like to see that one. So this was another 4% increase based off of last year. So you can see that trend as it just continues to rise as we get more into the community. Our largest growth for this year was our events and outreach. So 29% growth from last year. And so that's been kind of the goal that we went to when we rehired for our rec coordinator, is to go towards that. That was the area that we saw was the area that was expanding the most, that we knew that going into the future, our events and our outreach are just going to grow faster than some of the other areas in our rec department. So kind of breaking it all down, what does that 33,000 people look like? So there were a little over 15,000 individuals that came to the Zionsville Nature Center. So the Nature Center averaged a little over 1,200 visitors a month. We didn't have one single month where we were under 1,000. So, and that's first for us. Outreach grew quite a bit. So 34% of that number was in our outreach, in our events. Rec programming dropped significantly, but that's mainly because we turned away from doing more traditional rec programming to focusing more on events. And then, of course, the Nature Center programming did grow a little bit, but staying pretty consistent. And so what do those numbers look like? So this is more into the programs. We had 412 programs, which really is pretty close to what it was last year. I think that's looking at the number of staff that we have. We can only do so many programs with the staff that we do have. We reach a plateau. But I think it is interesting to see that even though the number is about the same, the yellow is actually our private programs. So our private program numbers grew significantly. So we had 76 private programs. Those are from Scouts. Majority of those are schools, as well as birthday parties at the Nature Center. And so that was a pretty large increase, about a 40% or 46% increase. And that gets us really back to levels that we saw before COVID. So we've seen that rebound. And with some of the things that we're going to be talking about, we're going to see that private program number increase even more over the next few years. So, and then I wanted to list out the different special events that we did have in the parks this year, everywhere from the Zionsville puzzle swap, which if you're a puzzler, it's going on right now. Get your puzzles in. You have till next week. And then the swap is on the 20th. Green Fest, which will be continuing on. Party in the Park. Our continuing Zionsville Nature Play Days, which is getting into its 7th year in 2024. Of course, the Butterfly Trail, Barnes and Brews, Creek Week, Trick or Trees, and then the new ones such as Fright Nights, Christmas in the Park, and then of course the Makers Market, all is a part of Winterfest. And then just a little bit more in our growth. There's our junior IMNs right there with their badges that they got. So of course we've got the Creek Stomper, which continues to grow in its what it's been doing for the community. So it went to 30 events with about 7,500 people. We did our first ever Indiana Master Naturalist programs. So we had our adult programming, which we are now full for the second round of that class. And then of course our junior IMNs, which is pictured. We did our Zionsville puzzle swap, which, about doubled. And I will say if you go up to the park offices, it's getting very small. There's a lot of puzzles up there. So, and then our program fees. So we did see quite an increase in the amount of revenue that we brought in, which we know for us, that increased revenue will allow us to then start to expand in our offerings as far as events, as well as in future staffing. So. And then just wanted to do, I'm always looking ahead for different things. So just a kind of a real quick look ahead for what this year means for us in recreation. Biggest one is we've got some new events coming out. We've got our total eclipse of the park, which will be on Monday, April 8th for the eclipse itself. We've already got people asking, do I need a ticket? How do I get there? No tickets, just come on out. And it's also going to be joined by, we're going to be doing a week-long trail fest, an Eras bike tour. So taking advantage of some Taylor Swift right there and looking at expanding Winterfest, the programming aspect of it, not just in December, but into, of course, we know winter does not end in December, into January and February of 2025. The Creek Stomper there is going to be getting a little counterpart in a new mobile rec or mobile nature center that we will be calling the Trail Hopper. So that one will be debuting sometime this year, fully wrapped and ready to kind of increase the number of outreach and getting the naturalist staff more into the community versus being stuck in the room at the library there. And then we're looking at how to kind of evolve some of our program aspects. So we are looking at an early childhood program called PEEPS, which hopefully will roll into Carpenter Nature Preserve and the future Nature Center as a potential, nature preschool. And then also expanding our Nature Connections program, which Rachel's here to talk about to you guys a little bit later. So. That's not mine, so that's yours.
just an outstanding growth, over 400 programs. That's more than a program a day that Mindy's small but mighty team continues to establish and execute for our community. Just a few more numbers, 243 shelters were reserved. That means 243 groups, celebrations, birthday parties were able to commence in our park system due to our facilities. We also had 67 garden plots reserved, which I believe is all but just one or two of those, and 261 current dog park memberships. So moving through these 7 layers of well-being, one that we have excelled at for years, obviously, is our environmental impact. So our ability to provide and maintain our green spaces so that the public has access to them. And this celebration of conservation and green space in Zionsville is no new item. Since the 90s, our town has been called a town within a park. And many, many years before that, Lions Park was established by several motivated citizens that wanted to establish green space in our community. So from our urban core with its green space celebrations of that with Green Fest and Creek Week, we've rebranded that, have expanded, and we've been able to expand nature education in our community for over 20 years and provided green space for over 50. And not only being the stewards of our green space is it to provide accessible parks for our community, but also to be the stewards of the land. So each and every opportunity we have to reinvest in our green space and promote healthy habitats and a more quality park system is something we're going to take advantage of. And in recent years, we have split our park maintenance department into 2 divisions. So there is the traditional park maintenance, which continues to maintain our picnic benches, our park grounds, and our hardscapes, as well as respond to hazards and incidents in our park. But we've also developed our natural resource division, which is focusing more on the natural habitats within those parks and making sure that they are doing well and being as healthy as they can. And our special guest this evening is our natural resource technician, Sam Fields, who's going to talk about some of the things he accomplished this year in our park system.
Sam. I've never been here before, so introduce myself. Yeah, I'm with the natural resources side of maintenance, and Jared kind of ran it down what that's all about, just kind of focusing on the more environmental impacts of our projects that we're doing in parks maintenance. So just kind of get through some things that we've done this year. A whole lot of tree planting. So 292 total trees put out in our parks, with an additional 134 saplings sitting up at our nursery at Heritage Trail Park. That's kind of across from the dog park there in that kind of open space before you get to that neighborhood that's being built right now. 5 new memorial trees put in our parks, a broad array. That's one of them you see there. That's a tulip out at Mulberry Fields. Also new dogwood out at Mulberry Fields, some bur oaks and some other things at some other parks. We focused a lot on the overly warm berm this year. That's that east facing berm on the east side of the parking lot of the park to kind of bolster a vegetation wall separating the private properties from the park's properties, but also just bolstering the natural space right there. We did a lot of work on after the rail trail construction, kind of following that construction crew. Major project on the rail was putting about 20 evergreen trees, eastern hemlocks and eastern red cedars, kind of to form, again, like a sort of vegetation wall between our properties and private properties, as well as then about 96 small fruiting shrubs that will get a range from 5 to 15 feet tall. That's chokecherry and buttonbush predominantly. And so again, that'll kind of create a vegetation wall and make it more so of a corridor as you're going down the rail trail. Also then kind of adjacent to that at Carter Station, did a lot of rehab there, which we'll kind of get into in the next slide of the original steps of that, but a lot of planting at Carter Station and a lot of planting at Creekside Park this year. And kind of what freed up the space for those plantings is our weed wrangles. We had a total of 12 different weed pulling events throughout the year, pulled in a total of 242 volunteers and generated a total of 365 service hours. So that was pretty awesome. From previous years, weed pulls had been done at both Creekside and Carter Station. So a lot of this year's planting was some spaces that we had opened up this year, but also filling up spaces that had opened up in previous years. Did a lot of work at Turkey Foot, both in the fall and in the spring. Creekside Park, doing a lot of work there. Carter Station, just removing honeysuckle. If you don't know, honeysuckle is just filling all of our parks. So it's just a slow and steady process to kind of move it segment by segment, but that's exactly what we're doing. As well as then garlic mustard in the spring, again, all over the place. And overly warming is one that we're kind of trying to tackle those front portions just because it is so brand new kind of idea, eliminate the seed bank before it gets too much to handle. And then we did a lot of work at Zion Nature Sanctuary, a lot in conjunction with some of Mindy's programs, Junior Master Naturalists, things like that. So then we also did a lot of work with pollinator plantings, prairie work. So we put a total of 563 herbaceous plugs in the ground, a whole lot of seed as well, but that's just the plugs that we put in the ground. 500 of those came from the foundation and went out to Overly Warman down kind of by the lake there. There's our path that runs along that. And as you hit that boardwalk on the north end of the lake, that's where you'll find about 200 of those plugs. At the northern end of the rail expansion, once you're getting close to Whitetown, put about 250 out there. And then another 50 or so ended up at the Elm Street Green upper beds to kind of fill in that bed where we had done a lot of work earlier this year, which we'll get into here in just a sec. Still working on the hillside at the golf course, as well as in the pollinator garden. There was a picture of it earlier with the path that's mowed through it. Those have been doing very well. So just kind of seeding this fall, seeding going into this winter, just to continue to bolster those. This picture here is the Heritage Trail pollinator garden. That's 63 plugs that came from various sources, mostly a woman named Jane Savage, who's a member of the community, and kind of sourced through our Boone County Invasive Cooperative, which is a nonprofit that's existing in Boone County, but Mindy and I have been going to, well, I guess technically in the works of becoming a nonprofit, but an organization nonetheless focused on invasive species removal. Mindy and I have been going to their meetings. They've been an awesome source for kind of pulling volunteers, as well as then, we're getting plants donated and things. So building nice relationships there. And then our Willow Road Prairie across the street from the golf course right there on Willow, that is fully in the works of getting going. It's right now just a mowed open plot, has been seeded, will be reseeded, and give it about 5 years, it'll be a beautiful prairie. And rail trail prairie habitat, we're just continuing to kind of bolster. That's where those plugs for the milkweed came in, and just continuing to work on that in future years. Also focused on bed plantings. Didn't do a whole lot of new plantings in beds. This is my first year in the position, so a lot of this was kind of seeing what pops up where, what do we have. So pansies and ferns went out at Lincoln Park, kind of in the gazebo, and then as well as in the front planter at that northeast corner. And then we did mums in the fall on that northeast corner and the southeast corner, as well as then in the gazebo. And that's what you see pictured here, fern in the middle and 2 mums on the sides. And then at Elm Street Green, we did a couple projects. We had an awesome planting project from a girl named Sophie Larson, who went to Zionsville High School. She did a project through class, came to us, and it was a planting project. So we planted an array of different flowers there, and then that's what the milkweed kind of filled in the gaps of. So those beds up there are doing really fantastic. And then just general bed and maintenance, weed pulling, spraying, trimming of shrubs, all these sorts of general things. That's what we do. And for the record, then that's kind of another member who did a lot of this with me is Jack Sampson. He was our seasonal guy. So that was awesome. And then we had a lot of work with volunteering in the natural resources end. Total of 1,088 total volunteer hours. We drew in 401 total volunteers. So I was pretty happy to break that 400 point. And then there's some Zionsville football guys that came out in the spring to help out at Mulberry Fields. So that was kind of a fun one. But the Zionsville Parks Foundation generated a lot of volunteer help for us, was awesome. ARC of Boone County, those are some of the hardest working folks in this town. That's an organization in Boone County that helps folks with disabilities get kind of paired with work programs. They came out and helped every single Wednesday this summer. So that was a really awesome program. Looking forward to keeping that going. Church groups, an array of different ones that reached out that we got all sorts of different work from. Zionsville schools, kind of through our recreation programs, as well as, things like the football team coming on out. And then our junior master naturalists and master naturalists. That was an awesome volunteer plug. Super glad that's continuing. And Boone County Invasive Cooperative. So that's just some volunteer sources to name a few, but getting that rolling and looking forward to keeping that going. Thank you.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you, Sam. So obviously those accomplishments with the numbers of new native species that we're reestablishing in our parks is quite commendable, but Sam really undersold just how much work goes into that. So as the volunteers leave, you pat each other on the back with the new installation. It's the continued maintenance to establish that and make sure it's going to be successful that really fills the majority of Sam's time. So the success of all those tree plantings takes constant watering, pruning, weeding. There's just a lot that goes into maintaining those new established locations until they can take over on their own. And speaking of our environmental impact, I think one of the largest successes of this year, as echoed by John Stair earlier, was the acquisition of the Carpenter Nature Preserve. So our first park location in northern Zionsville. This location has so much potential, fulfilling so many of our capstone projects over the past 50 years. So not only creating a complete park system throughout all of Zionsville and all of its townships and areas, but also conserving so much of Eagle Creek with 2/3 of a mile of it starting in our community and flowing down the park. 215 acres also offers the opportunity for expansive open spaces. So while we have a large percentage of forested area in our park system, this will allow us to have a large land mass that will be special to many species that call Indiana home as they continue to be displaced by urban growth in our presence. So a huge victory for our park system, and we look forward to all the celebrations that are going to come with that, not only as a new regional destination for central Indiana and our community, but also the natural education that can occur at that site with the future development of programming and our nature center, as well as just creating an accessible facility for all ages and abilities to enjoy. Looking at our programming through an intellectual lens, it's inspiring and creating enriching programming to foster creativity as well as expansion of knowledge. And our team does such a fantastic job of creating these opportunities, not only in the summer when everybody wants to be outside, but also in the winter and throughout the year. Innovative programs like the Puzzle Swap, as Mindy mentioned, literally hundreds of puzzles are upstairs right now with tens of thousands of pieces waiting to be assembled in our community. Zionsville just loves its puzzles, as well as our camp programming, especially recently our winter STEM program that continues to inspire minds throughout breaks and keep our youth engaged. And to talk about one of those innovative programs, we are welcoming Rachel Felling here to talk about her Nature Connections program.
All right. Thanks, Jared. I'm Rachel Felling. I'm a naturalist, and one of my primary roles is to work with the schools and coordinate school programming. So we started a program during the 22-23 school year called Nature Connections. And just briefly, the way that we have previously done most of our school programming is we offer programs. We wait for the teachers or administrators to reach out to us and say, hey, we want to do a program on reptiles or adaptations or whatever it may be. And then we go out to the school or they come out to the parks, we do a program. But we had wanted to start something that was a little bit more in depth, because true environmental education teaches whole systems and it builds on itself and encourages people to take an active role in making positive choices within those ecosystems that they live. So I developed this school year-long program. We called it Nature Connections, and worked with some folks in the 3rd grade at Eagle Elementary to start with. So we chose 3rd grade because I had a really good relationship with some of the 3rd grade teachers at Eagle, and we got it piloted during that 22-23 school year. And so all 4 classes of 3rd graders at Eagle Elementary School went through this program, and we worked to make sure that the curriculum also was supplemental to what the teachers were doing in the classroom, so that we were also helping them meet their standards, that we're reinforcing the concepts that the teachers are already working on, and giving these kids a full experience in understanding ecosystems. And so we went forward with it, and the structure is that there are 4 meetings between us and the kids each year. So instead of us just going out to this classroom one time, having a great time, but then never seeing the kids again, I got to go back and see these same kids multiple times throughout the year. So a classroom outreach in the fall, another one in the winter, a field trip in the spring, and then a service project in the spring. So a couple times where I'm going to them, we're in the classroom, we're doing some things in there, and then building all those concepts together to bring outside for a fun field trip, and then a service project that is related so that they can see their own positive impact. And I also created a bunch of supplemental resources for the kids to do within the classroom, take home with them, and communicate hopefully with their families as well. So just briefly on what we were covering, the first outreach is about how living things and ecosystems are connected, all of these things working together, adaptations, and then all of that. Outreach 2 focuses more on, now that we understand how these things work together within those ecosystems, how do we as humans have an impact, both positively and potentially negatively, and letting the kids kind of understand those things with a big focus on both invasive species and watersheds, because those are 2 things that are hit on in the 3rd grade curriculum. And then the field trip in the spring reinforces all of those topics and immerses the kids within their ecosystem. So this was really fun to pilot with Eagle Elementary because they are so well placed with the Zion Nature Sanctuary in their backyard. And they use it so awesome. They use it so much. So it was an easy school to pilot with because we did not have to worry about getting the money for buses or anything like that. They could literally just walk out the back door. We'll talk about how we've expanded it and the challenges that may or may come with that, but it was really fun. We go for a hike to talk about native and invasive species. They're exploring these different habitats. The Zion Nature Sanctuary, if you have not spent time there, is like a fantastic little several mini ecosystems in a very small park. It's my favorite park in town. They also did a stream quality assessment. They got into the water, looked for all things to study the ecosystem and measure water quality, which is really fun. And we discuss those human impacts, and they decide based on a rubric, is this water healthy or not? And spoiler alert, it is. It's a good creek there. And then they followed it up with a service project. So we did this all together, and we had Sam's help. We also had the help of some of the Parks Foundation members who came out that day. And the kids, this last year in the pilot year, they pulled garlic mustard. You see this one little girl with one trash bag. I think we took out 25 of those bags. Something like an incredible number of bags of garlic mustard pulled by 80 third graders and a handful of adults that were also there and helping. It was incredible. And then they packed seed balls, which are like a little mud ball to help the seed actually propagate, of native plants that they then spread throughout the nature sanctuary, which was messy. It was a blast, but they got to end by having a really positive impact. So how do we expand and grow this program? So we piloted it with the one school in 22-23. We were generously funded for this pilot program by the Zionsville Parks Foundation, which I will be eternally grateful for. They also, spoiler alert, funded our next year as well, which we are currently in. And so now that we're in this 23-24 school year, we added a second school. And we worked with Trailside Elementary. Since they're a new school, they're looking for new things. Also had some good relationships with some teachers and admins there. So it was a really easy partnership to work out. They do not have the Zion Nature Sanctuary in their backyard. So we've worked with some logistics. Their field trip is going to be at Overly Warman Park, where they can still explore all those ecosystems, do water quality assessments, and help us with some service projects, because there are plenty to be had there. And our goal, and we're maybe working towards it even into the 24-25 school year, is to add all 6 elementary schools in Zionsville and get every single third grader in Zionsville in our parks and through this program when they're in their 3rd grade year. So very excited about that. So, and once Carpenter Nature Preserve is open, this will happen there. So the field trip, with the exception of Eagle, because they take such personal pride and care of the Zion Nature Sanctuary, but maybe even them, we're going to get all those kids out to Carpenter Nature Preserve. And obviously there's a lot of logistics. We're going to need more volunteers. We're going to need to do some work with our small team to make it happen for all 3rd graders, but we're really excited about the possibility. So very exciting program. So yes, adding volunteer naturalist training if anybody's interested in that sort of thing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So building on those partnerships and establishing an expectation for our community that all third graders will have exposure, real hands-on experience with nature education. We look forward to how that's going to evolve with our community as we continue to grow. Finally, looking through the lens of our physical spaces, it is our responsibility to offer safe spaces for our community to recreate and explore. And that takes a lot of work when you have 715 acres for a population of 30,000. So we have a very small but mighty maintenance team that pursues and patrols and repairs that our entire park system. And Chris Flanagan was not able to be here this evening, but I will happily review his information with you all as well. So in 2022, the Zionsville Parks Department invested in a work order system. This was to improve the way we regularly complete our tasks in our park systems, improve communication of things that pop up in our park system. So rather than being on phone calls and text messages, we now have this software that we can utilize for not only understanding the work assignments of the day, but creating documented work orders with pictures, with descriptions to help our team as they navigate our park system. So in 2023, over 3,500 work orders were completed through the MaintainX software, and they were created and 98% of those were completed. 6 memorial benches were added to our park system, as well as a 20 by 20 shelter pad at the dog park. So those improvements, it's no greater accolade than our own residents wishing to be a part of our park system and adding their family and their memories to our park system. So we welcome the inclusion of any memorial bench where it is appropriate, and we continue to make strides to improve the accessibility of our park system with some of our developments. Installed 10 safety bollards on the rail trail and Turkey Foot Nature Park. So these bollards are now at every intersection along the rail trail so that we can avoid any headlines about vehicles attempting to peruse those. So just a safety measure that was sponsored in 2023. And that was a lot of work to install those. That central picture on the right there is the Zionsville Parks Department team partnering with our wastewater department to utilize some of their equipment to quickly excavate the newly paved rail trail extension. So that was backfilled. A cage was put in there and the bollards were put into spec so they can appropriately accommodate any vehicles that might make the mistake of trying to go onto our trail, which hopefully never happens. So continuing to foster not only the positive atmosphere within our park operations, but also with other departments in the town. Successfully continue to reframe portions of the Turkey Foot Bridge for safe use. The bridge abutments, the bridge span is in excellent condition, but the bridge abutments being made of wood and in quite the aquatic location, continually harbored by not only the mist of the creek, but also humidity in that lower area. Those boards have just rotted at an exceptional rate over the years since 2007 when they were put in. So maintenance routinely pries those up and replaces them with appropriate boards and runs supports along the system to make sure that that bridge is still operational and safe for the community, which it continues to be. They rebuilt the railing at the nature sanctuary, the Zion Nature Sanctuary that was destroyed by storm damage, installed directional signage and volunteer toolboxes for our mountain bike community. The Overly Warman Park Mountain Bike Trail has developed quite an interest in our community, and there's a small group of volunteers that help us maintain that. So we established a toolbox out there so that we can coordinate that they can fill out the appropriate volunteer paperwork and then begin to help us take care of that amenity in our park system, as well as repainting parking lot lines and the continual maintenance that happens in a park system. We also continue to improve our skills as a maintenance department with more employees becoming certified as pesticide applicators. So as much as we try to limit the amount of application we do in our park system, it is still necessary on occasion to combat invasives or just to manage some of our grounds. So we have more employees certified to conduct that, as well as several that went through the training. So getting into the nuts and bolts of the MaintainX work order system and kind of what it's beginning to tell us. So 2023 was the first year that the work order system was here on January 1st until December 31st. So our first full year of data. Our repeating work orders include the daily rounds, monthly inspections, playground inspections, vehicle inspections, and other routine work orders that are created. So 60% of our work orders out of that 3,500 are routine maintenance. And then the non-repeating work orders are highest during the summer months for a variety of reasons. That's because we have increased users, which requires more wear and tear and more response by maintenance. It's our growing season, so as things become unkept, we have to respond rather than routinely maintaining them. We react to storm damage and other inclement weather, and as well as our park system continues to age, they're just things that are going to require more maintenance. So the hills and valleys in this chart from both the created and the repeating versus the non-repeating and the created versus completed are mirror each other due to the increased activity in our summer months. So kind of breaking out what the data is telling us again, our medium work priorities are part of our daily, weekly, monthly obligations as maintenance techs and natural resource technicians and the director. Our high priority work orders are reactive. So those are our threats to the public, either through storm damage or something broken that needs immediate attention, or civil disobedience in the form of graffiti or other damage to the park system. And our low priorities are those marked none, consist mainly of on-the-spot identification. So as our team is out in the community, they can actually create a work order to take care of something right then, or just document it for later use when they have a little free time in their rounds or their next visits. So this data is still a little bit experimental, but we're beginning to dictate exactly the amount of supplies we need in our operational years moving forward. So these statistics in front of you is not only for the supplies, but also the employees' wages. So it's approximately $25 in parts and labor per hour throughout our park system in the 12-month span. So what we can take from this, we can break out our supplies and begin to make sure that as our park system grows, we can anticipate the expenses of future parks. How many trash bags is a park of this size going to need, or a park of this nature, whether it's nature trails or an activated park like a skate park? Just anticipating those to build more resilient and better prepared budgets moving forward. And our part usage continued to remain high this year as our fall months were irregularly warm, and that continues to be the trend in our years. So our park season is becoming more pleasant, longer, which is good and bad. Operationally, we're just continuing to meet the demands and need of our community. So routine park maintenance work orders, although assigned on specific days of the week, sometimes are completed within 24 to 48 hours. So that's part of the reason that there is a little discrepancy. So our goal this year was in 2022, 62% of our work orders were completed on time, and our goal was to reach 80, and we did get 10% closer to that. So this can also be, it's a little preliminary to really rely on this as a key performance indicator, but it's certainly heading in the right direction as we see that percentage of on-time completions improve. And there's so many factors that can influence why maybe a work order was missed. I mean, if you're anticipating on doing inspections on one day and then there's a storm event, you're obviously going to respond to the public safety event first. So still excellent data and keeps us moving forward to better and better completion rates. Before we move on, is there any questions about the MaintainX software?
Yeah, so but this is the first full year because it was like a half year. We were implementing, right?
Yep. So we signed the contract and implemented the system in July of 22.
Yep.
So just a half year's data then. So this is actually our 2023.
Didn't really get a good use of that either that first year, I think.
Right. There was still a
cultural
learning curve. Yep. But our team is excellent at it. I think later we have a picture of one of our teammates responding to a downed tree, and he's actually on his phone. He's not tweeting or anything. He's actually starting his work order time on his cell phone. So
you view it as a big benefit?
Absolutely. It's really helped us with documentation and just communication amongst our group. I mean, historically.
The data there, that's
Yeah.
great stuff. So is there, is that automatically renews or is that something that has to be?
It's an annual contract, so we build it into our budget to pay for that. I think that invoice will probably land around March for the next following year.
Can you differentiate the type of work order by acuity? So you could see got 100% of your high priorities completed on time. Can you dig that layer deeper into the data?
I think we can. It's quite the intuitive system, and Chris obviously is the expert of it. So I will have to defer to him on our next meeting, but I'll make sure he follows up on that. But it can be broken out into locations so we can know which parks are requiring the most attention. And as I mentioned, some of that data, we have a large amount of passive parks where it's just trails and people enjoying nature, but we also have our activated parks. So understanding the cost differential of supplies and labor to an activated park versus a passive. And so as we grow, we can anticipate those costs, but I'll have Chris follow up at our next meeting.
Appreciate that.
And moving on, our maintenance team are our frontline stewards to our community. So as Sam kind of mentioned earlier, we had an exceptional year of volunteering but between our programming and our maintenance team, there was 1,374 hours of volunteer work completed. So those are hours that our community is investing in their park system, and that's helping us have our impact reach further and saving our community on staff dollars while we're able to get more work done. So 383 of those community members in those volunteer hours were through weed wrangles and the devoted to removing invasive species and their management. 517 of those hours were through our ARC volunteer program, which is a fantastic partnership between our two organizations. And 97 scout, student, and corporate volunteer opportunities, planting native trees or preparing our beds, and also supplying the Heritage Trail Tree Nursery. So also, our park system has the fantastic municipal course, our 9-hole Zionsville golf course. And to speak more to that is Mike Wall. And for the first time in a couple of years, we have had a complete season, and there's quite a few things that he got a hole in one on.
Yeah, so the golf course, first time we've been open an entire year with great weather. So the year in review for the golf course. So we're open 244 days this year, from March 15th to November 22nd. So to compare 2022, we were just open 154 days. And in 2021, we were open 205 days. So when you look at the revenue of $595,000, in 2022, we were at 370,000. In 2021, we were at 438,000. So when you're open an entire year, these are kind of the results that we can have. We increased our daily total by 6.4%. And, from 2021, we're up 13.9%. So our rounds per day, we're at 107. And in 2021, we were at 92 rounds per day. So, so the popularity of golf, since COVID has definitely increased, but that down at Zionsville, we've definitely capitalized on the popularity of golf. 9-hole golf courses, like I've said, are kind of the way of the world. No one has time for 4 hours. 2 hours is definitely, what they have time for. So 26,000 rounds is what we did last year or this year. In 2022, we did 14,000. There again, I understand it's 154 days. And in 2021, 18,940. But, it's still, a pretty substantial increase of 12.5% increase per day. And so yeah, we're packing the people in 107 per day. Not, we were still closed some days. So we're being open 244 days. That's whether we're open or closed. There's some days where we're closed. So that's, 0 days, we're still averaging 107 people per day. So here's kind of our comparison from, 2022 to 2023. Again, I understand 154 days to 244. So it's roughly 58% more days that we were open. Our carts, 57% increase, concessions, 45% increase. We've got a different, more of an offering of beers like Moontown, Metazoa that, people are liking. But Greenspees, 49% increase. Merchandise, 48% increase. Pull carts, push carts, whatever you want to call them, 78% increase. Season passes, a 230% increase. There again, a couple years ago, I came here and asked for student passes to be reduced from $400 to $200. And was kind of asked, well, you're going to have to sell 2 passes to make up for the 1 pass. Well, at that time, we were selling 0 passes. And I had just, I was like, well, sell 1 pass, we're still going to make up, we're still going to be ahead of the game. Well, last year we sold 74 student passes. So we're definitely well ahead of the game. So student passes and senior passes are definitely driving our golf passes. We were well over 100 season passes sold last year. And like I said, we're already at 20 and we're just getting started. So like I said, this is the first year since 2019 that we were open from March till November. A little bit of comparison in 2019, our revenue in 2019 was $219,000. So from 2019 to 2023, that's an increase of $171,000 in revenue. So a little bit of difference there. So as you can see, the board approved some mowers. You can see those here. So that helped with the playability of the course, the greens. It drove people down to the course because the course was, much more better conditions. The rough was in better conditions. Pete took care of the course. Kyle took care of the greens. We appreciate, the board's approval of these 2 pieces of equipment. The golfers appreciate those pieces of equipment. We had an initial drainage project that the board approved that was performed in late spring last year. This project, definitely helped us keep the course open, open the course quicker after rains. Sometimes, hole 4 would be underwater for days and we'd have to keep the course closed. Now that was near the tee, up near the green, it still gets wet, but hopefully we can take care of that and get the drainage taken care of on that area in the near future. But definitely near the tee, it was drier this year. There again, it was a perfect storm this year, so to speak. It was a great summer. It was very dry. It was like we did that project and it never rained again. So it was kind of like a project that was more like insurance. So it was perfect. Oops. So the large cottonwood that is on hole 5, we took that down. That's gonna, it was dead. It's gonna help the play of that hole. It's gonna play a different way. Many people would hit in there and be the demise of that hole for people, but it's gonna.
Every time.
Yeah, it's, so we're gonna open up the fairway to the left and it's gonna play the way the hole should have been played. Like I said, pole carts, we increased the, revenue on pole carts. But people enjoyed the push carts that we got. We got those push carts in June and we paid for them in 1 year. I know other courses don't charge $2 for those push carts. They charge much more for them, but we're encouraging people to walk and people definitely are using them. And so part of the physical, that we're talking about, they're definitely using them. So we replaced the sign and scoreboards, the flags at the golf course, for the, that sign there is actually on the other side of the scoreboard that the middle school teams use for their matches and when we have other events. So we're trying to spruce the course up and we're going in the right direction. So all in all, is a successful year and all signs point that we'll be open March 15th this year and it'll be another full season rather than there's no signs that we're going to be delayed. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions or? All right. Good work.
And concluding 2023, we did work through the public process of completing, creating, and adopting the 2023 to 2028 Zionsville Parks Master Plan. So this document is a living document. We will refer to it in our operations, not just the next 5 years, but well and beyond that. Utilize the information collected in it to not only influence our future budgets, but also to influence policies as well as townwide strategies and initiatives. So that was a huge accomplishment, keeping us current with our community as well as eligible for future funding through the Department of Natural Resources. And as we look to 2024 this year, our vision for the year is to explore your outdoors. So while we have an immaculate park system and we don't want to discourage others from traveling to other parks to explore those, there's plenty of unique and fantastic opportunities for recreation and exploration of nature right here in Zionsville. So our team is tasked with not only finding new ways to encourage users to come out, but also developing programs for all ages and abilities. So this year we are going to continue our mission of expanding wellness in Zionsville with new programs and events. And there are some really exciting ones that are a little too early to talk about, but I'm looking forward to what our program team are putting together. We will continue to remove barriers for participation and play. As a part of the 5-year master plan, we also had the ADA transition plan established for our park system with recommendations of how we can improve our accessibility. And our maintenance team will utilize that plan moving forward to implement those changes. Small at first, and then future budgets will plan for the larger changes so that our park system can be as accessible as possible. It is our goal to rehabilitate the Turkey Foot pedestrian bridge to keep that in safe order so that as the trail system continues to expand in that part of our community, patrons continue to not only enjoy Turkey Foot, but the pathway system beyond. Also, this year, a priority is to design the Mulberry Fields concession stands. So one of our priorities in the past few years was to reinvite our youth sports back to Mulberry Fields. That was the original intention of that park back in 2007 and had a great start. And then something happened in 2012, 2013, and all the teams kind of went away. So we worked really hard after COVID to bring those teams back, and we are filling just about any playable season out there with those fields being reserved. So want to continue that investment and develop a concession stand that will also double as a year-round restroom. So one of the greatest barriers right now for Mulberry Fields is people want to continue to enjoy it in the winter. And that is when we either place the portable restroom on site and close our splash pad seasonal restroom. So this will allow not only year-round restrooms, but in our peak season when the splash pad's at full capacity, but there's also a game going on the fields, we'll be able to accommodate all of our users. With the restroom facility, we can also highlight that as a rail trail connection, since there's a connecting spur from that patrons can branch off of and use those facilities. And we'll continue to inspire new users and neighbors to join us. So working with the Lions Park for the past several months, we are working towards an easement and a shared project of connecting our two parks, the Elm Street Green to the existing Lions Park, as Lions Park has recently purchased 5 acres in between and look to expand their park presence in our community. And also not only building shiny and new, but continuing to take care of what we have. We are looking at giving a refresh to Lincoln Park. Being one of our original parks, it is quite tired, and some of the vegetation and infrastructure is nearing end of life or was built prior to ADA standards. So it's our goal to kind of give a refresh to that park, still keeping the character and the history of that site, but just making it more aesthetically pleasing and more accessible. And also with the success of acquisition of the Carpenter Nature Reserve and the preceding bond that was passed, we do have the funds available and executed a contract for the design of phase 1 of that property. So we'll be working on that. And once our grant reimbursements land, we will begin to discuss construction. So more to come on that. And from the bottom of my heart, and speaking probably on behalf of all my staff, we just want to thank you. A big thank you to the community of Zionsville, our elected leaders, our park board volunteers, and everyone in the community that helps make this park system so great and truly help brand Zionsville as a town within a park. So that's all I have for our 2023 year recap. I'm happy to answer any questions before we move on to the agenda.
Fantastic 2023, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think, it's the amount of work and care that your department puts in is not appreciated, I think, in full by many, just because it's such a significant lift. But I'd like to think that with the changes that, have gone on in the department over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, that the community is starting to see the value of that effort a lot more probably than they have ever in the past. I personally am really excited to see a lot of the modernization that has taken place and how the department operates, the data tracking and the quantifying of impacts and metrics and all of that. Because we all know if we don't count, we don't count. And I know for a long time we weren't counting, but now that Jared's been here, I think that's something that's changed. That's been really positive. And I think on the programming side, Mindy, your team does an astounding job with the resources and staff that you have available. And I think in addition to all the memories made and, the great warm and fuzzies, I think that the community visibility of the Parks Department and the park system has significantly increased even in the last 6 years that I've been here. And I think that your intentional efforts at engagement are notable and are obviously paying off. So I would encourage that to, keep up the good work, and let's find a way to not have to have you do quite so much per person, if we need to expand in the future. I think that's a worthwhile effort. And then I am, as a park professional and an advocate for parks, really happy to hear Jared, you talk about, and I know John did this as well in his term, but the values of our park system beyond just recreation and play, which we all know are super important, but, talking about mental health in addition to physical health and well-being, and, a focus on, the economic impacts of the other contributions that our system makes. That often aren't readily available or readily visible to a lot of folks, I think is important in sort of bolstering the support for our system. So excellent work. We look forward to 2024, and let's keep it up.
Thank you.
All right. Comments or? All right, moving on with new business, as we have a temporary public art installation. Jared, is that something you would talk about?
So beyond offering exceptional nature education and recreational opportunities for our community, we have continually tried to identify opportunities to trick other users into coming to our park system. So there is a percentage of the population that might not completely understand the value of a walk in the woods or why the health of our habitats are important, but they sure do appreciate some fine art. So in previous years, we've added murals and installations of public art into our park system to not only enrich our park spaces, but also the people that experience them and their experiences. So we have an opportunity before us. Denise Rowland Troyer is a professor of ceramics at one of the neighboring universities in our community. She approached the Parks Department with the idea for a temporary art installation to be in our park system. Her project is fully funded with grants, and she just wishes to add public art to our communities to help them thrive and experience and celebrate culture. So Denise sought us out because of our work and our exploration and expansion of public art. So some of her early drafts and selling was that she is just completely fascinated with fungus and the fungal world. And her installations for this project were inspired by the way the fungal communities communicate with each other underground. And so she, utilizing her talents with ceramics, anticipates installing several, and when I say several, it's several hundred of these ceramic installations in our park system for a brief amount of time to celebrate public art, to get people scratching their heads asking what it is, and just to have people appreciate another thing and activating our trails in a new way. So the installation would consist of numerous groupings of this futuristic fungi-inspired pieces along a portion of the rail trail. The preferred location would be between Whitestown Road, Bridge, to Pleasant View, and the Spring Knoll area. So we've already discussed kind of the area where this would be most appropriate. So given the green light, Denise is going to create 200 to 300 of these pieces ready for installation. And each unit would be approximately 12 to 18 inches high and 8 to 10 inches wide, and installed with a metal bar in the ground to help keep it in place. So obviously very excited about the opportunity for sharing public art in our community, but being the superintendent, I'm not one to say no, but I often say, how can we? And a couple red flags that immediately rose for me were the opportunity for these structures to be vandalized or broken or cause harm. So speaking with her, she was able to test some of the ceramics and actually drop it, and it didn't shatter. So the thought I had that this is brittle ceramic clay is not true. It is all natural components except for the metal bar. So should one become vandalized, at least it's natural materials. But further, I think if we do move forward with this installation, we would install temporary trail cameras to keep an extra set of eyes on it, and just make sure that we're vigilant in keeping best patrol that we can, so that the intended purpose of the installation would be successful. So the pieces would be far off the trail outside of our regular mowing operations. The goal of the artist would be for a runner, biker, or jogger on their first visit to be surprised by this installation and curious. The spacing would be intermediate or intermittent, sorry. Groupings would be small or large and vary. Denise did stress her footprint and not to trample the vegetation, but to embrace it. So where there's clearing areas, that's where she would make the installation, or actually putting it under trees and things so they're hidden in the environment. The installation would only take 2 days and would be taken down in 1 day. And she already has a dedicated team of volunteers with her. The pieces are secured to the ground with thin coated metal stakes through the legs. And this isn't the first time she's done this, so we're not the pilot community. Denise did have an installation in DeKalb County, Wisconsin, with similar pieces. And I believe there was a 50-mile stretch in rural Madison, Wisconsin, where these installations were placed. And I think there was closer to 500 of those. So during that art festival in that community, they had over 20,000 visitors during a 10-day event. And obviously the community embraced that unique feature for that temporary time and created programming and experienced that while it was there. And from that, with over 500 pieces created, she experienced no breakages and only lost 23 to theft. So we did discuss the possibility of some of them walking off. And she was well aware of that and the risk that would be associated with that. So truly just doing this from the generosity and the opportunity she has with this grant and wanting to expand public art in our park system. So with all of that, it would be my recommendation to consider authorizing Denise with our special use permit to install this installation for a set period of time, at which time those items would be removed. And to ensure the success of this, our park system would continue to regularly patrol the area as well as put up temporary surveillance just to keep better eyes on it should there be an incident, which I'm hoping there's not. So if approved, we would activate this activity within our Trail Fest event that we're planning for next year. So the artist has agreed to actually have a public walk and talk about the installation, as well as we've discussed bike rides that would go from the Zionsville Road trailhead up our rail trail, exploring the murals as well as this installation. So kind of celebrating the art in our community. With that, I am happy to answer any questions or comments about this.
Just to give background to this board and to yourself, I've managed the public art program at Eskenazi Hospital for 10 years. So this is an area of my expertise, but so I have actually questions as a contrarian and then questions as a supporter. So I mean, it sounds paradoxical in some of my things, but it's a way to kind of dig deeper into this. So my first question is, how long does this intend to stay up?
I was thinking within the month of May.
Okay. And then my other question is since this is an unsolicited work, an artist has approached you, it does open up some ongoing concerns of mine as far as like people seeing this opportunity to come to you with unsolicited public art opportunities. And so I would encourage us to consider, if we don't already have something in place, to begin to draft some sort of policy around how we handle these types of opportunities or requests for displaying public art. Because it can quickly, I think, you know, if the public, if someone's going to take offense or someone's not going to like it, everyone has an opinion about art, right?
Yep.
Which is one of the nice things about it. But the most benign things can become blown out of proportion sometimes. And so being able to be prepared to have a response, what is our process? What was our process for this selection? Did we make an exception? You know, those types of things. So I would just encourage us to think through developing. It can be very simple, but I think a set of, I think from a liability standpoint even, would offer some additional protection. And even just from a public information, public response standpoint. So I don't know what the actual specific recommendation I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to add bureaucracy. I'm not trying to add unnecessary complications, but I do know from experience, we are going to have to be prepared for strong opinions. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
and I'm happy to work with you on that, you know, like, and whoever would like, you know, to think through some of those questions. But I do think that's a pretty critical part if we were to move forward with this, that I would like to see some sort of adjacency to this of making sure that we've established how this works ongoing.
Do you know, Jared, do we need a decision on this at this meeting so that she can begin like the production process, or when do we need to make a decision on that?
I think we could continue this to next month, and I can talk with Michael more about some of those parameters, and we can see what we can accomplish from a procedural standpoint within the next month, at least to have some framework moving forward.
There's no, and my understanding, there's no like formal arts council type organization. I mean, I know there's people who are generally, there's a group that has supported arts in Zionsville, but there's not an official jurisdictional authority.
Correct. So there is the cultural district, which
That's right.
also approached us for the installation at the Zionsville Road Trailhead, which
Okay.
recently happened. And I do understand that as public art has been added to town hall and other facilities, that a committee will form, send out the RFQ, receive responses, vote, and then that's how that's decided. So that's more of a permanent installation, and certainly something we could fold into any temporary policy we create as well.
With embedded into the ground, how deep did you say they were going to go? And
The metal bars are just around a foot, so supporting the weight of the 12 to 18 inch structure.
For that installation and removal, you were talking about, would it be closed? Will it, or they just? keep
I
it
don't think
open?
that they, she did say that she would be able to utilize a gator. So we'd have to authorize permission for her to access the rail trail and put those supplies in the back and then exit the ramp. So again,
Continue to stay open through the installation.
oh, absolutely. Yep. So minimally invasive, and all that could be completed within the special use permit that we would draft for that agreement.
And then would there be some thoughts on doing some things to get some free publicity to get people, like you were saying earlier, to trick people into coming and seeing the art and to visit our parks?
Absolutely. So, something we say inside is, our department is you got to find 7 ways to let somebody know that something's happening in order to reach them. So, Amanda Vila, our public information officer, is fantastic about utilizing our channels through media as well as social media. And then we have our own following with our newsletter and just signage. So one thing I failed to mention, that there would be signage adjoining this so people know what it is. Maybe a couple feet after the initial installation so they could have that shock factor, but definitely appropriate signage.
I have to say, as somebody who has been a part of the Pathways Committee and in the initial conversations about Trail Fest, that this sounds like a fun addition to Trail Fest, since we were trying to find, different ways to make that interesting and a positive experience. Sounds fun.
Thank you.
So, what happens to the art pieces when it's disassembled?
Yep, she takes those with her and they're hers to break down, as she does in her shop. I guess she has her own home shop where she makes these or utilize in another community. So
I'm just wondering if there's not an opportunity to sell a piece of art from the trail to community members as a fundraiser. Because I mean, that's something that I would spend a little bit of money on. It was an art installation. It's created as art to put in my front garden. Nobody's actually been to my house. It's a horrible place, but if I had a nice garden, I would put it there.
I think that's a great
But
idea.
I mean, I think if they're just going to be destroyed anyway, if she would agree to work with the foundation, I'm assuming would want to do this. I think our community would really get invested in that. And they're quirky little fun things and yeah.
I could certainly explore that with her as we move forward with this. If we move forward with this.
One just clarifying question. Would there be any incremental cost to the town of Zionsville to do this?
No.
You said it was funded by grants. Would that be everything completely? So you already have the trail cams, you already have all of
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yep. So we do have trail cams in our operations that we use from time to time when there's instances. Her part of this project is funded through her grants and she's offered to provide the labor for installation and removal.
Do you know where the grant funding is coming from?
I don't. Yeah.
And have you talked to the other municipality that worked with her in the past?
I have not.
I would, encourage you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, again, I echo some of Michael's concerns just about getting ahead of problems that don't currently exist. I'm a huge proponent of as much great public art as we can get anywhere and everywhere in our park system. I'd love to see it all embedded with it, but I do think there needs to be some sort of decision-making framework that we, can fall back on. That way, we have a means to say no in the future if we want to, and recourses, if things go awry. So, I'm inclined to move this topic to the next meeting so that we can have some discussion about that in the interim. I do want to take advantage of it. My recommendation at the next meeting will be that we move forward, and hopefully there's some sort of at least preliminary framework in place for why we think that this opportunity is a good one, and then how we can sort of validate these or vet them in the future. But again, it's I think as our system becomes more sophisticated and, we build a larger and larger and larger engaged base of active users, we're going to have more opportunities like this that come up, but we have to have a way to sort of vet them, I think. So
I think this is all great information and I'll be back next month with more.
Yeah, we'll definitely move that to have to work through some more information for February. Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on, 2024 DNR LAR grant application.
Thank you. So 2 years ago in 2022, the Zionsville Parks Department was awarded a LAIR grant for the study of our Eagle Creek corridor as it runs past Starkey. And now with the advantage of having Overly Warman, we can actually look at the banks of each side of the creek and identify those areas that are in most need of restoration work to not only improve the habitat and the park space, but also to reduce erosion. Reducing erosion not only helps us keep our park in our park, but also ultimately helps the quality of the water, which, as you know, Eagle Creek becomes the tributary that is the drinking water of our community. So every step we can take for fortifying and improving the health of this corridor is going to be a win in countless ways for our community. So last year we attempted the same grant application and were not awarded. So it is still the recommendation of the study to attempt to fund the first two sites. I believe my screen's being shared. So in the 2022 study, there were 4 sites. Well, there were multiple sites identified and they were paired into tangible work groups that would be the most efficient as well as make the greatest impact. So
We don't currently necessarily.
okay. Can we get the screen shared? Thank you very much. Apologize for that. This is our Eagle Creek segment between Starkey and Overly Warman Park. We have completed projects in the past. That's what those stones out in the middle of Eagle Creek are. That was a J hook, helped to reduce erosion in a couple of sections of our stream corridor. So this application with the LAIR program. So the LAIR program is the Lakes and Rivers Enhancement Grant from the Department of Natural Resources. It is an 80-20 split. So we only have to offer a 20% match, which is fantastic odds for a grant. Placing these two projects together. So site 1 is 90 linear feet of bank that'll be regraded to a 2-to-1 slope, and they will establish native seeds with blanketed control blankets and establish a rock trench. Site 3 would be to create a stream barb, which I'll show you in just a moment, and to regrade that stone toe with the bank as well. So, sorry, we'll back up a little bit more. So, with the 2022 LAIR grant awarded study, it was to look at the erosion of this corridor in our park system. And the simple non-aesthetic fix is just to throw riprap down, because then the soil's not going to go anywhere. But that's not natural. That's not what the stream would do naturally by fallen trees or anything like that. So the engineer services and the contractors we worked with, Stantec, they actually implemented these biological controls that would help us reduce our sediment load that's being lost with the erosion. So that's utilizing stones, that's utilizing native plantings, that's utilizing actual trees and shoving them into the bank, all in ways to armor that corridor. So just give you an example of what that stream bed and the stone toe would look like. So it would be under the water, the normal water level, and then above these stones that would be regraded to a 2-to-1 slope and reestablished with native plantings. And this is a model used for improving this. It's gone through the hydrological tests, and this project has also been permitted with the DNR. So everything's packaged up and ready to go. We were just waiting for the award of our next LAIR grant to get it moving. So with the completion of sites 1 and 2, site 1 would reduce 2.34 tons of sediment a year in our Eagle Creek, which is pretty notable. But site 3 would reduce 28.2 tons of sediment that's annually lost into our creeks. So each effort would pay dividends again for our community. And we wanted to start at the north end and work our way down in this corridor. So as these improvements change the hydrology, we'll be able to reassess in later years and make sure we're applying the best prescription for having a healthy, maintained Eagle Creek corridor. So we do this in-house. This same very similar work is being done at Carpenter Nature Preserve with the In Lieu program. So that is a project that's kind of on autopilot with the award from the DNR. So they are engineering the solutions to improve the hydrology of that section of Eagle Creek. And that'll all be done kind of in a partnership. And then we'll be handed a check at the end of that to maintain it after 10 years. So fantastic partnership. But then this layer grant is something we can do locally to create solutions as well. So the total project cost for the contracted services as well, for the construction of sites 1 and 3 is $81,075. So our 20% cash match would be $16,215 if awarded. We do have adequate funding within our contractual services to pay for that. That was something we planned in the budgeting process. So happy to answer any questions about the LAIR grant application. So this application is due on the 15th, and they usually let us know in March or April who was awarded, and then we can move forward with that.
And you need a motion to submit it?
Submit the application, yes.
Does anyone have any questions first?
The application that's in the packet though, still refers to past leadership here. And then also the number that you just gave us, the 80,000 is not what's listed on the screen. It looks like maybe this is the one from last year. I just want to make sure that I have no problem with the project. I just want to make sure it's the right one.
So the total in the packet was different than the
Yeah,
80,000?
it says it's 90,000.
Oh, I adjusted for inflation. Sorry, I reached out to some contractors to get some new numbers.
Okay, so these are the new numbers.
Yeah, so this was pretty much cut and dry from last year's application. I apologize for that.
Did you get feedback on why you weren't awarded last year and kind of course correct on that?
Limited funding. There's just too many other competing priorities. And I think perhaps because we were awarded in 22.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve the grant application for the DNR LAR grant?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, next up is the 2024 Strategic Trails Implementation Plan Grant Application.
Thank you. So the Department of Health is offering a grant application opportunity for updating towns and communities, pedestrian and bicycle mobility plans within their community. So the last time this specific effort was taken on by Zionsville was in 2016. So we've obviously changed a lot since then. It was a fantastic document. It established not only a grid system for our roadside pathways, but also some of our creek corridors that could be regional trails in the future. So I really commend that document. That's helped us to influence how development is moving forward. So this would be the opportunity to update that with all that's changed in Zionsville in the past several years. And this would be in partnership with the Department of Public Works. So the town as a whole, one of the priorities of 2024 is to update our comprehensive plan that is 20 years overdue. And within that, there is a transportation plan, but that wouldn't, while it would touch on pedestrian and bicycle facilities, it wouldn't be the level of detail that this supplemental plan would be. And so the town's comprehensive plan is kind of a set of encyclopedias. This is straight from Lance, our Director of Public Works, but it's a set of encyclopedias. And then from there, there are separate chapters and things that are added to those to make the full document. So just like we just adopted the 2023-2028 master plan, which certainly wasn't around when the original comprehensive plan was created, those supplemental documents are updated within that overall plan. And that plan is the guiding vision for our community and our priorities and what we implement with standards and policies. So I think it's a great opportunity. There is a matching grant up to $20,000. So I'm still working out whether this would be a parks-led initiative or a DPW initiative, but either way, we've discussed cost sharing. So the application is due next week. So with your blessings and looking at our budgeting, we would be able to offer as a Parks Department up to $20,000 towards this program. And then should that program be over $40,000, the Department of Public Works would have to cover the rest of that. So that would be a conversation with Lance. But again, I think this might actually be a Department of Public Works application. But I just want to discuss it with you and the opportunity for us to invest park funds in that plan.
Is there any advantage to both applying jointly and to show that collaboration and coordination? Because, you know, these are, I always think of trails as both recreational and recreational assets and transportation assets. Is that being considered, or is it just ease because they want one applicant, or?
The specifications of the grant say to have it executed by the highest ranking member of the organization. So
Okay.
that would be potentially Mayor Stair, if it is from the Department of Public Works, but because we're special and awesome, we have the park board as our authorizing body. So I think regardless in the narrative, we will describe that it is a joint partnership.
And then I guess sort of related to that, do you think there's a better outcome? I don't know enough about governance with the city yet, but like, is there a better outcome from a parks perspective of what this document is if we're more heavily involved as opposed to a more engineer driven? And no offense to an engineer driven project, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's different ways to think about those assets.
Absolutely. And I think it's the lens that we would come to the table with, which is really what I'm putting forward with our department as there is talks of updating the comp plan. So I want parks to have a seat at the table of all those conversations, because I really think our development can begin to work for us much more than it is currently. And there have been great partnerships in the past, and Overly Ormond Park in Bonterra is an excellent example about a land donation that became a park, as well as Wild Air, the new development that'll be coming off Marysville Road. But I really want parks to have a seat at the table. So maybe it's not an opportunity or a chance, but more of an expectation and a standard. So just continuing those conversations. And I think that same lens could be applied to this. Well, I'm really happy that I identified the Eagle Creek corridor as a potential recreational trail and regional trail. I think there's a couple other things we could highlight and make some connections between our park system prioritized.
So if in the world where we were awarded the funds to do this study, would it be led by parks or led by DPW internally in terms of who's managing the consultants doing the
That's the
study?
more important question I was trying to get to.
Yeah. So that's ultimately who signs the dotted line as the authorizing body. If it would be park board, then it would be a parks led initiative. Similar to years ago, we had an RFP for the community center, strategic planning of that. And that was a parks led initiative, but we had representatives from every department on that committee. So if the mayor and the Department of Public Works are the ones to authorize this grant and send it forward, then it would ultimately be their project. But Lance and I's partnership and collaboration is pretty exceptional. So
yeah, I think to me, I'm a little agnostic about how who does what on paper. My experience in park planning, and I bet Tricia, you could probably echo this, is trails are one of the unique subsystems of park systems that sometimes get isolated in entirely different departments, but then have a huge impact on how the system is utilized. And in some cases, you know, you're maintaining them, but you don't get to participate in the design and planning of them. And there's just, you know, it's something that comes up more often than I would have anticipated. So I just think just making sure that that parks has a meaningful and equitable seat at the table, especially if we're fronting the money for the grant. You know, I don't really care whether it's led by Public Works or anyone else, but just making sure that parks has a meaningful role in the development of the process or the development of the planning product, I think is what we need to make sure of. And beyond that, I'm 100% supportive. We definitely need a new plan.
And actually, thank you for bringing that up. Tricia could speak to how the 2016 plan was implemented and kind of came about, if you want to.
Sorry, Tricia.
Yeah, that plan was led by Parks Department, Parks Board, through the Pathways Committee. But I can tell you we had every department on the steering committee. Lance was heavily involved in that plan along with the Parks Department. And because a lot of the roadside paths are maintained by Lance and his department, but a lot of the trails, like the Big Four and some of the paths, are maintained by Parks Department. So you really need both weighing in because, again, you've got equipment needs for maintenance, you know, and just long-term budgeting for replacement of those facilities too.
So, assume you need a motion to apply for this grant.
A motion to at least authorize up to $20,000 to be matching should this be awarded, regardless of which body signs it.
You have that money in your budget.
Yes, yep, plan for that as well.
So do we have a motion to authorize use of the $20,000 for the strategic trail implementation plan?
So
Land
moved.
grant application.
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
I'll provide an update at the next meeting about how that application shook out.
Or do you have an idea when when they'll give the grants?
Yes, spring.
Spring, okay.
Yep.
Okay, moving on, we have a Turkey Foot Bridge Rehabilitation Design Services.
Oh, sorry, there's no photo with this one. Moving along with our priorities of this year is to continue to have a safe park system with our infrastructure sound. And while the bridge abutments remain safe at this time for pedestrian load, it has been several years since we've authorized the use of the department's ATV ambulance to go across that stretch. So there was just concerns of that weight load going across, even though the bridge was originally spec'd for it. So while it continues to remain accessible for its intended uses, we would like to improve this bridge not only for reducing the hazards of the wooden approaches at the Turkey Foot Bridge that do become waterlogged often and have been replaced several times since its 2007 creation, but also just improving those with a approach and abutment that is much easier to maintain, and the maintenance will go down. So the proposal would be to design and replace the bridge abutments to the Turkey Foot pedestrian bridge, replacing those with steel and concrete. They have some really cool technology for the boardwalk approaches that can go up to this bridge and still provide the exact same footprint, pretty close, for what we would need to not only continue operations, but also enhance the experience on that segment of trail, as well as the maintenance. Pressure washing and inspections are a lot easier than replacing deck boards and substructures. So we have requested for a proposal. We've been talking with a few firms and believe that Butler, Fairman, and Seifert would be the best team to partner with on this project. So BF&S recently worked with us on the SB3 project. As you'll recall, that's the Starkey staircase that was originally intended to be metal and then re-engineered to be wood to match the aesthetic and being under the power lines. So working with them again, they would provide the design services for the replacement of the bridge abutments, the permitting, as well as the construction administration when we're ready to bid it out and award. And the proposal cost for this project would be $97,230. And when we were budgeting, if you'll look in your contractual services, it's quite inflated for this year because we anticipated this project at 100,000. So coming in just under that estimate for the design.
Any questions?
Just to spearhead when a big portion of that will be DNR permitting. When we actually have that in hand, it can begin the work. And closures are never going to feel good. So when that work happens, we will utilize all our channels to let the public know.
How long do you, when the construction goes, how long do you think the closed?
Less than 6 months.
You mentioned something about with the access with ambulance and such. Now with more access to the north, is there ambulance and other utility access coming from the north now? Not solely coming from the town, it's
with the Holiday Farms subdivision, there was the opportunity for more access from the roads. I don't know the strategy of the fire department, but this would be a segment of our Eagle Creek Trail as we look 30 years from now when that trail is just as big and long as our Big Four Rail Trail is today. So as many access points and crossing the creek as we can have, I think the better for emergency response.
Has there already been a conclusion as to whether the bridge structure will be a prefabricated structure?
That is what is spec is to utilize a prefab.
When would you expect construction to happen?
Again, that's the permitting will be the biggest barrier.
It's 180 days of permanent, right?
Hopefully, we experienced some longer lead times with overly warm and unfortunately, but with the green light from permitting, then is the bidding of, 30, 45 days. And we have it in the budget to pay for that improvement. So
okay.
we could be back with you with a contract for that later this year.
It's kind of general understanding. Forgive me, this is my first meeting. How you source your vendors, you select your vendors. Walk me through kind of RFP process and how you go through that.
So design services, we have a little bit more leeway and we can work. There's not the same statutory requirements or Indiana code. So originally this project was planned to have a different improvement a couple of years ago with a different firm. And I began conversations with them last year. And they had some changeover in staff and it felt like a clean slate to really reach out to a couple more. So we reached out to 3 different firms and discussed the project with them, and this felt like the best fit.
Thank you.
Questions? So I guess you need a motion to.
Pending Amy's review of the contract in any language that needs updated would be the authorization to execute this agreement with BF&S and begin the design services for the Turkey Foot Bridge rehabilitation.
We have a motion.
Moved.
Second one. Okay, we have do a roll call vote since it's a good chunk of change. Brian Cambridge.
Aye.
Michael Kaufman.
Aye.
Matt Milburn.
Aye.
Chad Dilly.
Aye.
Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane.
Aye.
And I, John Slevich, say aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Lincoln Park Connector Trail Survey.
Yes, so as I mentioned, for the past several months, we've been working with the Lions Park, not only to donate back the tot lot and tennis courts, which historically were the Lions Park and then transferred to the town. And we felt it was a good time to transfer it back as they look to master plan their larger site. But we also discussed that Eagle Creek Regional Trail and kind of the future we saw along that greenway and the opportunity to have a shared partnership where the town could improve and maintain a pathway along Eagle Creek. And most importantly, provide a connection between Elm Street Green and Lions Park. So this is made possible by the generosity of the Storns, which are just south of Elm Street Green. For a few years now, we have had an easement for this trail on their property. And most recently with the Lions Park acquiring that extra 5 acres, we had the final linkage to make that path successful. So this is the first step in creating that easement exhibit so that we could have a description that we could record and transfer from the Lions Park to the Parks Department. And this would be for survey services for creating that exhibit. For that would be $8,580. And again, this would be funded through our engineering line within the general fund.
Does the scope of work continue all the way from Elm Street Green to where? To the head bridge?
To the Sycamore Bridge, yep.
Okay.
So we want to define exactly what we're agreeing to take care of in the future with Lions Park. And tentatively, we're still working on the exact layout of that trail. But the understanding is that once it is transferred, that we will be responsible for its upkeep and maintenance. And that includes as it traverses through Lions Park today to Sycamore Bridge. So kind of a shared partnership again.
And it looks like based on the preliminary alignment that there may be some field impacts in Lions Park. I'm sure that they can adjust around those, but will they have access to the survey data?
Absolutely. Yep. We're having a good time of sharing information and surveys between each other. And I think we're all aligned in their board voted in favor or will be voting in favor of this project as well, or is anticipated. So this is kind of that first step in having an official proposal that we can propose between our two bodies for adoption, exception, and moving forward. Otherwise, we'd be squatters.
I'd make a motion to move forward if there's no other questions.
So moved.
Second. Yeah, okay. That's right, yeah, just jumped on it. So we'll go ahead and do all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. And as that survey is completed, we'll utilize that with the transfer of that easement, and it'll be before you again for adoption as well as with Lions Park.
Just a quick note on this, just as a note of enthusiasm. I mean, this is like one of those projects that in some ways might be a small project, but that has massive impact.
Yes.
It's a very, very exciting project.
For speaking from Elm Street Green, you know, currently if a family needs to use the restroom or just access the park on foot, they're walking on the road. So this will provide an alternative to that, as well as access to the restrooms of Lions Park as well. So kind of definitely a benefit for our park system. And as their park expands 5 extra acres, it's just going to look like it's one continuous public space for people to utilize.
It's a great partnership. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Lincoln Park Refresh Design Services.
So as I mentioned, not only keeping our community safe as well as building new amenities and properties for the park, but also maintaining what we have. Once I can click it appropriately. There we go. Within the master plan was the refresh of Lincoln Park. So this is not a total rebuild. It's not intended to deviate from the character or the history of the site, but simply refresh it. As I mentioned, being a park 50 years old, you know, there are challenges with ADA accessibility as well as the life of the gazebo structure. So there is planned vegetation improvement and removal, as well as improvements to the gazebo and creating an accessible route for our community to access the park. So with this one, we would prefer to work with REA, Runsdell Ernstberger and Associates, on the design of this project. And for those services, which include the design, permitting, and construction administration once it is ready to bid, for those services, it would be $50,000, which again was anticipated and budgeted for in the 2024 budget as one of our priorities.
Sorry, you said that does include construction administration or
Yes.
contract administration?
Yep.
For the duration of the construction period?
Yes.
Any other questions?
I'm just looking at the plan and it seems like every time I drive by Lincoln Park, people are like, there's been weddings there, people are taking pictures there. Does this design take that into account, those use and the concert series and different things? It seems like we're losing a fair amount to hardscape and picnic area, which will be used as well.
Absolutely. I think the primary function of this park so far is that it is a place for very, very small gatherings and ceremonies. And I don't think we want to lose that at all. But also allowing the site to be a spot. You know, there's so many people I see here reading a book at lunch because it's close enough that they can leave from their shop and go read a book. So just inviting a couple additional users to enjoy the site and maybe inspire a new person to stop by, as well as just make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So when I mentioned kind of the vegetative overhaul, we've just, there's invasives in there. There's things that we wouldn't have planted today that were established in the past. And this would just provide a really great opportunity to set a new expectation for this park.
Is there, I see this crosswalk or this improved crossing, is that part of the design, new construction midway?
There isn't, that would be a new one. So that's definitely something we would talk to streets about, as well as kind of the overall plan for the Gateway project. There's a lot of conversations going on about that. So
I would just say if we're gonna have, more frequent usage, like just making sure the crosswalks are clear and part of the vision for updating access to that. So, because it'd be unfortunate to do all that work on them and then the crossings, like people feel like they're darting across to get to it.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah, I think I like the program. It's a great little passive park. It's got a lot of history to it. But at the same time, if there's not an event going on, or even a small one, there's not a lot of reason to be there or places to even be. So I think that if you could fast forward to when this is done, especially during the spring and summer months, on a weekend, this park is going to be packed with people eating their lunch, picnic style, right? Because Lions Park is also great, but it's very crowded. So I think the balance of uses is good, and I'm excited to see the sort of flexible seating and that kind of stuff. I almost wonder if there isn't a consideration, and this brings up a larger topic that isn't related to the approval of this. So I think we can hold it for another meeting, but I could also envision almost, string lights or festoon lights over the seating area. But I know we have this dark to dawn or dusk to dawn policy, right? But at the same time, we have these quasi-urban public spaces that would easily be activated in the evening hours, especially near the downtown core. So something to kind of chew on later. And that's not a major, component that needs to change any design or budget, but something to think about as we think about how this park might be used with these new improvements.
Well, even just driving by, that would be very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. Well, and as long as we bug in the potential designer's ear, as long as we could make sure there's some GFCIs that are, on the corners of the pedestrian spaces, that's something you could easily add, low voltage overhead lighting later, right? But want to get those in.
And just to mention, Mulberry Fields hours is not dawn to dusk. It's actually dawn to 11 p.m. So there is a precedent for establishing parks that are activated.
Good. I think this would be a great candidate for that, especially in the summer months. So
we have a motion to approve the working forward on the design services with REA.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Do a roll call vote. Vice President Ryan Cambridge.
Aye.
Secretary Michael Kaufman.
Aye.
Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane.
Aye.
Matt Mulburn.
Aye.
Chad Dilly.
Aye.
I myself say aye as well too. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, Pine Street ramp, no parking zone.
So a little history about this. When our rail trail was much younger and the Nancy Burton corridor and trailhead was about the only amenities being planned or there, the Pine Street Rail Trail ramp offered an opportunity for ADA parking. That has since been achieved in several other locations, our Zionsville Road Trailhead, Nancy Burton, Town Hall, Heritage Trail Park, Mulberry Fields. So the need for a dedicated ADA space is not as prevalent as it once was. So currently Pine Street is a dead-end street. And cars historically did park there. We had two spaces, one ADA, one non. But since we had a neighbor slightly to the north, we worked with them, I believe it was in 2022, to remove our presence from half of the road so that they could have their entrance to their driveway, just being a good neighbor there. But recently, with the encroachment of cars and just the painted lines that have faded, there was a call to the police, and we discussed just how a car was parked there. And really, it serves very little function as a trailhead. And I would prefer to steer people to our other facilities that can accommodate multiple cars, as well as that are lit or might have surveillance, so we can have better information. So I feel that the Pine Street ramp should be a pedestrian access route only, and not offer that parking any further. And should someone really enjoy this entrance, there is still on-street parking on Pine Street, so they could just park 10 feet away off park property and walk in where that is permitted. But with your approval, this would not require the Department of Public Works, since it is technically on our property. would just be to remove this space and to paint no parking in its place. And then we will enforce that moving forward. Part of that was that currently the police would not have the opportunity to enforce anything in that location, just because it's not marked as no parking or anything like that. So this would authorize them to enforce that should it be needed.
Is there a reason not to do something more? I mean, it seems like to do something more substantial, or is it just from a low cost and that will suffice?
And there's a great deal of elevation to get down to the trail. So I really celebrate these community connections. There's another one at Laurel, where it is motivating people to access the trail via foot instead of getting in a car and driving to one of our trailheads. So I think they're a great thing. We're working on another one with the Hampshire Division so they can have that connection as well. And
I guess I mean just something that sends more of a visual message that it's not for parking versus just the paint. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, we'll place a sign as well. But currently there's nothing is all. And rather than implement a drastic change, I wanted to bring it before the park board since it is a lasting change to our park system.
Gotcha. So with the intention though for potential future beautification, I guess that's where I'm wondering.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like it could be if it is a pedestrian access point, how does it become inviting? Because when something is not inviting for cars, it can also have implications of not being inviting for pedestrians.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that was kind of the reaction I had with seeing all the striping.
Yeah.
Was almost like it
Do not enter.
it does give off a sort of a no-go vibe. And I would still call this a trailhead. I would just call it a minor trail, like a minor trail, a community access point. And I'm wondering if the solution isn't as simple as removing the striping that's there, signing it as no parking, and then maybe somehow visually delineating the trail versus the road. Maybe there's a thermoplastic strip or something there, and then possibly one of the yellow collapsing trail bollards, just so it's clear where the trail starts and the road ends. But I do kind of agree that the massive caution tape, kind of effect could be a detractant. And to be honest, if I lived in the house across from it, I'm not sure it was fair.
You see that,
That's a great point.
Yellow, orange striping, yeah, so.
Yeah, and if we, you can always add that stuff later if it still continues to be a problem, but I would tend to agree as well. It's like, if a sign is enough to kind of end the problem or.
So how often do you think it's actually used?
Just depends.
Yeah, 'cause-
I've seen cars there, but I don't, peruse the Pine Street entrance
Yeah,
that
so
often.
this is Pine and what, 8th Street, right? Just,
It's kind of dead ends over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is the dead end, but
Jared, what would the police department need to enforce that as no parking?
just signage from us, removing that parking space. So I agree. I think there's a much better aesthetically pleasing way to accomplish the same goal, and that would be through signage and then additional
I
measures.
think what the approval could be, I think there's, the motion could be to approve changing this to no parking
Yep.
with the intention
Yes.
of future opportunities for beautification in this space. And so minimal, in the short term, minimal intervention to prevent, parking and enforce that with the intention for later exploration of, doing something beyond that, if that makes sense. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the importance of the motion is that we're taking away parking from a regulatory standpoint. And means and methods of how we do that. I think you can iron that out.
Yep.
I mean, I would favor a more minimally invasive, visually invasive approach, at least.
I agree.
until it becomes maybe
More of a-
continued problem.
Yep.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
So we have a motion to approve changing the Pine Street trailhead to no parking.
I'll always move for no parking, so.
So I go on record.
That's a cyclist, yeah. I know people will come out after that, but.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, new business is completed. Old business.
No old business
No
at this
business
time.
discussed today?
Yep.
Fantastic. Other board items, the one thing I want to state, as we have some new board members is, you all need to make sure you get involved and get your Zionsville email address established. We can't be using personal emails for, board business, so make sure you guys work and get that established, and then also there's we do get a slight little stipend, so make sure you get your W-2s and such taken care of also with the town, so you guys are properly reimbursed for your service to the parks, to the town. That's what all I have for additional. Anyone else have anything you want to discuss?
I've got two items.
Okay.
If no one else does. Sorry about that. Some late additions to the agenda. So one item is something we're revisiting. If you'll recall, and to the new members, this might be something new. We received a correspondence with a member of Union Township that wishes to donate a parcel of land to the park system. And we have been working with that donor to kind of do our due diligence, ensure that this is a good fit for our park system, as well as we can access it. We'll be able to build the park. So in reviewing the challenges of the site, which are minimal, it's mostly access. We did notice that the school would be our neighbor to the north. So very much like Eagle Elementary and Zion Nature Sanctuary, we have the chance to add a park behind a school and have that partnership and relationship in another part of our community in the future. So we have been working with the schools to procure the option for an easement. So not the actual easement at this point, but just the option. So should we receive the donation of land, that we could move forward with that easement. So the update this evening is that we have been asked to cover the costs associated with the schools providing this gift to the Parks Department, which I see as a pretty reasonable request. So those fees are still being finalized, obviously, as we move forward with this. But with your authorization, I would like to move forward with working with the schools to finalize that option for the easement and absorb any costs associated with that on the school's behalf, not to exceed $5,000.
Yep, we've been working on this for a little while now. You guys,
And for you the new members, this is right off of 900 East, which 900 goes up towards the Carpenter Nature Preserve. So this is just a little ways off that. And the easement in question would just be to establish an entrance drive all the way back to the property. The property is 60 acres, currently an ag field that's worked land. And we would receive that through a life estate, which we're very happy to receive many years from now. We want the donor to have a long and healthy life.
So it's a landlocked piece of property.
There's no school yet.
Oh, the property, what we're gonna get is what is farmland, and it's landlocked. So this is the only point to get through it is the piece of property that the school owns. So the only way we can get access through is to work through school to have. They're gonna need to have road access there anyhow, but it's through a partnership. It'd be just better to. Most likely we'll have the access probably to a park before a school actually gets built there, just because of being Union Township and being, our largest township, but our least amount of population, which is my township. So,
I don't know, John.
it's growing fast up there for sure.
This, I think, predates my tenure on the board, but have we verified, not knowing yet, obviously, what the site plan of the future school will look like, but that was a 125 south there. Is that the?
Yep.
The easement is fairly close to that intersection. Is it sufficiently far enough away that we're not going to have a transportation problem of having two intersections too close together?
Again, not knowing the exact layout of the school that would be proposed, we did work with Lance and the Department of Public Works to establish where this could.
So he's okay with it. Okay,
Yep.
that's.
Yep.
And you said historically this has been farmland?
Yes,
Yeah,
and still is.
Still farm.
Still is.
Yeah. So basically, if you put a line from, we had overhead major power lines going over Mulberry Fields, it just moves on north. They go those same power lines that go over Starkey, over, it just continues north over, it's that same pathway that those power lines, just to give you an idea of where it sits in longevity of the town. So do you have a motion to allow Jared to work with the school to get easement access not to exceed $5,000.
So
I second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
All right, and
One
one,
more item.
one final item. Doesn't cost any money at this time. So as we acquire the Carpenter Nature Preserve and work through planning out that site, it will be a little while before the public is invited out there. And we want to make the right impressions with our neighbors because those will be our future stakeholders and eyes on the park. So we were asked, historically, there is a house that neighbors the actual preserve's property that shared a well with the preserve. So at the time of acquisition, we turned off that well in that connection. So those tenants would like to utilize the water to that house for the time being. Their intentions are to begin building next year, at which point they would develop their own well. So being a good neighbor again and thinking about the future, I would recommend that we consider allowing that partnership for the shared use and authorize myself and Amy to work towards establishing that agreement. First and foremost, we're going to do testing of the well to make sure that it is safe to drink for public consumption, and any monitoring plan that'll be associated with that. And then any fees incurred with that would be wrote into the agreement so that it is a cost neutral thing for our park system, but still benefits our neighboring residents. So happy to answer any additional questions concerning that.
does the continued use of that well in any way affect the anticipated construction schedule of phase 1 for Carpenter?
No, so that well is for that neighboring residents as well as the maintenance shop. So there would be improvements to the maintenance shop, but there's no sewers that are going out there anytime, or sorry, water that's going out there anytime soon.
Everything's well out there.
We'll be well out there for a while. To which we would probably drill a new one for the restroom facility that will be located elsewhere.
And
If I had to guess.
the agreement will be time limited.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, we'll have a sunset date, probably not to exceed next year.
With an option to renew or no option?
No, because then our timeline would probably be
Right.
that we're about to open to the public.
So you do need a motion to,
Just to work with Amy and the neighbor to establish that agreement, which would be before you to authorize John as park board president to execute that agreement once it's vetted by Amy and ready for approval, pending results of a water quality test.
we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second? All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. That's all for me.
All right, so next is claims. Everyone get a chance to review the claims. Any questions or concerns?
No.
All right. So stick
I
around, so
move-
we need to sign, everyone needs to sign the claims at the end. So do we have a motion for adjournment?
Wait, we have to, I move we accept these claims
Oh, yes.
as
Okay, yes.
presented.
We accept the claims as presented.
I move.
Have a second? All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay.
I apologize, John. It appears we passed over one item on the agenda, which would be the
Tri-State Forestry.
yes, the 2024 restoration project for Lions Park Connector. I need to open my computer one more time.
Yeah, okay, it was on the list, so. Well, I printed, so I apologize.
Okay. So piggybacking on all the progress we're trying to make on that connector trail, we have the opportunity to cost share in some forestry clearing of the woody invasives that unfortunately plague our entire park system, but specifically for this project, Elm Street Green, as well as that connector section. So coordinating with the Lions Park, they are moving forward on clearing that 5 acres they just received. So it's more of a blank slate for when they are programming their park. One moment, sorry. As you're getting a peek behind the curtain. So with that effort, there would be an opportunity to remove invasives from the store and easement, and that would be from the trail easement boundaries to the creek, as well as the interior walking loop of the Elm Street Green corridor. So this would leave the large species native trees in place, but selectively remove all of the woody debris that we've continually been making efforts to improve through our weed wrangles. So this would just allow an opportunity to make a really large dent, and Sam would be responsible for treating any of the hydra heads that popped up afterwards and building on that success. So with that accomplished, we would potentially have the majority of Elm Street Green, as well as that entire connector trail, free of woody invasives at least, which would be much more manageable moving forward. So the proposal that was shared just before this meeting would be for the selective forestry clearing of the store and easement, as well as the darker yellow section of Elm Street Green. And annually, we budget $30,000 towards ecological services to help us with these restoration projects. And the pairing of these two projects would be $23,500. Saving us $6,000 on multiple remobilizations by pairing it all together. So a very obtainable goal of monitoring that with our resources in-house moving forward. And this will save many, 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 many volunteer hours of removing it in the first place.
So to clarify, it's invasive only, or are they gonna grub anything below a certain?
There will be some grubbing. There's several dead trees in there that we will work with them with as well. But there will be some native young trees that are also removed. But the end product of having that blank slate for reforestation and a healthier habitat is the ultimate goal.
It's a lot of work. Pricing seems fair, better than fair, a little. So. Yeah.
So, do we have a motion to approve the quote for, was it Triforest
Forestry services,
for
$23,500.
22, 23?
23.5. Yep.
I'll move.
We have a second? I'll second. Do a roll call vote. Ryan Cambridge.
Staying. We Framework, the company that I own, is currently doing the master plan for Lions Park. And there's a component of that project is reviewing their proposal as well. So I'm just going to abstain from this vote.
Secretary.
I don't really see a conflict, but.
Understood. Secretary Michael Kaufman.
Aye.
Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane.
Aye.
Matt Milburn.
Aye.
Chad Dilly.
Aye.
And I say his aye as well too. It carries 6 and 1 abstain.
Thank you. Now it's everything.
Now it's everything.
Are you sure? Hit that thing and hit it.
Right. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second. Adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Is there anything to sign?
Yeah.